This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Welcome to This Week in Connecticut. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dennis House. Today, while you are sitting at home watching us, your car could be in danger. A crime that's happening all over Connecticut from the Litchfield Hills to the shoreline is on the rise. And in a moment, what you need to know to prevent becoming a victim. Also, the housing boom in Hartford and New Haven. We have a sneak peek of some very cool places to live. And we take you inside a new factory. Is our state going through a manufacturing renaissance? Also, why can't Republicans win in a part of Connecticut where Donald Trump is popular? And a flashback to a Hartford Whalers legend.
They basically just cut this wire here and cut right here, and off the thief went with the precious metals, that cat converter, and unfortunately it's gone, and the exhaust is very loud.
I would not advise against confronting these people.
That was the Holocaust, right? It doesn't get more challenging than that. You know, he left a home in Germany without knowing English, took a boat to Ellis Island.
In previous interviews we've had, you were pretty bullish on Hartford. Has it changed at all? In your judgment, what are the biggest mistakes Congressman Courtney has made? First up this week, the lead, catalytic converter thefts. We will talk with two experts in just a moment. These crimes are happening all across the state at an alarming rate, and if your car is targeted, it can be quite costly. The most recent cases turned up in Plainville, Middletown, Milford, and in Bristol. So let's begin with the basics. What exactly is a catalytic converter? It's part of the car's exhaust system that converts toxic gases from an engine's emissions into safe gases. If it's stolen, you can believe you will know immediately. As soon as you start your car, hit the gas pedal, you'll hear a loud roaring sound. Big question, why the rash of stolen converters? The National Insurance Crime Bureau lists these three valuable metals inside converters: platinum, palladium, and rhodium. By the way, rhodium is reportedly the most expensive metal in the world at more than $2,700 an ounce. Joining us now to provide some insight is Joe Fiumara at Modern Tire in Rocky Hill. And Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Not a problem at all.
So first of all, so many people don't even know what a catalytic converter is. What does it do in terms of making your car run, and where is it?
Great question. So the cat converter, I have one right here. It basically has some precious metals inside it. And as the exhaust goes through from the engine and goes through this part, it reburns it so that when it comes out this side to the back of the car, it makes it more fuel efficient and less exhaust for the outside world. So it basically makes it cleaner burning. And that's what the exhaust, basically, the cat converter does.
And so where is it located in your car?
Okay, so I'm going to bring you right here underneath this vehicle. So it is underneath the vehicle. The converter normally would be right here in this section right here. So unfortunately, you know, there's so many happening these days, but right here it was cut flush here. It comes off the engine. They basically just cut this wire here and cut right here, and off the thief went with the precious metals, that cat converter, and unfortunately it's gone, and the exhaust is very loud.
So the criminals climb under the car, slide into the car with the saw. Is that how they do it?
Yeah, you know, I've got a saw right here just to show you. They're normally battery operated, and within a minute to 2 minutes, if that, they're going to go through and take this blade and cut right through that pipe. And it's like butter. It basically goes right through, and in a minute or two, they get the converter. Some cars have one, some cars have four. So it all depends on which vehicle they go through and target.
So what do they do with these after they steal them?
So, you know, scrap metal yards will go through and take the converter and pay you cash money for it. And it's got palladium, it's got platinum, it has some copper, rhodium inside it. And, you know, palladium is actually more than an ounce of gold, you know, so a palladium ounce versus that, it's astronomical.
How much does it cost to replace a catalytic converter?
With parts, labor, it can be anywhere from $1,500 to well over $3,000, depending on what exactly they took. This one, of course, will need a new sensor. And sometimes, just because the converter's cut out, they may need, we may need to change the rest of the exhaust going to the back, because some of it's wall welded. So unfortunately, sometimes you only have to get it as a whole assembly. Yeah, it gets to be pretty pricey.
Are there brands of vehicles that are more appealing to criminals?
Great question. You know, some of the Toyotas, the Priuses, have more content of that metal inside, so they would be more valuable to thieves. So yeah, we've noticed Hondas, we've noticed Toyotas, Nissans, like this vehicle right here. Pretty much a lot of different cars, but a lot of the higher vehicles off the ground, they have more access to get in and out, and a lot of fleets too. You know, you have a bunch of vehicles lined up, they'll go in a matter of 10-15 minutes, can get 10-15 cars at one shot.
Joe, final question for you. What can people do to prevent people from stealing their catalytic converters?
All right, so I'm going to show you right here. We do install what's called a cat clamp, and I have a picture of the final product of what it looks like. And basically, this is like a braided wire that we actually, or a place can go ahead and do, and put it around the converter itself. Now, it's not foolproof, and it's not, you know, it can still get cut, but that little blade I just showed you is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes to cut through all these braided wires that are totally go around the converter. So if this is on a vehicle and another vehicle doesn't have it right next to it, they'd be more apt to go to the other vehicle versus this because of the, you know, the theft deterrent, I should say. It's like a car having an alarm. They won't tend to go after that versus a car that doesn't have an alarm.
This has been very insightful and fascinating. Joe Fiumara from Modern Tire in Rock Hill, thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Connecticut.
Anytime, thank you.
Also joining us now, Ed Stevens, the Chief of Police in Wolcott. I've had the pleasure to interview him many times over the years before. And now he's here to talk about catalytic converters. And Chief Stevens, thanks so much for being with us here today on This Week in Connecticut. So why do they want these catalytic converters, these criminals? What are they doing with the product?
It's the precious metals inside. You know, they go along, they're stealing these catalytic converters, getting as many as they can. Used to just be at night. Now they go out in broad daylight and take them. They bring them to dealers or scrappers, people that are collecting those. You know, they'll pay them for a decent amount of money for what's inside of them. You know, they take the whole catalytic converter. Then these wholesalers, basically, you can call them, they then, you know, sell them off to people that are taking all the precious metals out of them. So they're worth a lot.
How long does it take for someone to steal one of these off a car?
Oh, you can get less than a minute. We've had them come into town, and they will go right through these cars like nothing. Less than a minute. They take the Sawzall, basically it's what they use, a battery-operated Sawzall. They'll go underneath the car. They just 2 cuts, and they got it off. It's very quick, within a minute.
What can you do to stop the sale of them? Do you alert metal dealers and things like that?
Yes, we do have a couple scrap dealers in the town of Wolcott, and we have notified them to call us if people are coming in to, you know, try to cash those in. And we do get calls on them where they won't take them in because they're supposed to use ID when they're trading things in. It does spook some people sometimes, so they will leave. But we do try to track where these are going. A lot of them aren't at the big scrap metal places, but these smaller people that are shipping them out of the state.
What is your advice for the people of Connecticut watching today in terms of what they should do to try to protect their car from this?
Well, your car, the easiest way to protect it, to guarantee nothing's going to happen, is park it in a garage. But, you know, we know that not everybody can do that. But if you do hear suspicious sounds outside, you see someone suspicious outside, if your dog barks in the middle of the night, if you have a dog, call the police right away. So the best advice, you see someone, you hear something in the middle of the night, dial 911 right away. We'll get out there. A
frightening situation. All right. We appreciate your insight. Chief Ed Stevens of Wolcott Police, thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Dennis. Take care.
Now, Connecticut has a rich manufacturing history, and while the brass and silver industries are long gone, some of the fields that made our state an economic power decades ago are still going strong today, like aviation. Today we take you to a company that you probably never heard of, but it makes products that keep some of the big companies like Pratt & Whitney and Sikorsky humming along and employing thousands. In a nondescript industrial park in East Hartford sits a brand new factory for a company that is more than 75 years old. Horst Engineering and Manufacturing makes parts that keep planes in the sky.
We manufacture aircraft hardware. We manufacture all different types of parts, but primarily fasteners like bolts, screws, nuts, tie rods, studs. We make pins, we make sleeves and bushings, all different types of hardware made from difficult to machine materials that are used to build aircraft.
The company was started during World War II. Horst Liebenstein had just fled Nazi Germany and had come to the United States in the hopes of a better life. Hitler's army took his family home, and his parents died in the Holocaust. With an Americanized name of Harry Livingston, he created Horst Manufacturing here in this barn in Hartford's North End. Scott Livingston is his grandson, who now runs the company.
So when you think about where we've come from, you know, did my grandfather have it tough? Yeah, I mean, that was the Holocaust, right? It doesn't get more challenging than that. You know, he left a home in Germany without knowing English, took a boat to Ellis Island.
So tell me about what it means when you think about your grandfather and sort of how he started this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the one word that comes to mind when I think about my grandfather is legacy. His anvil is over here in the corner. It's something we dug up when we moved to this new factory last year. It's been kicking around. I had it under my desk for a while. It's finally on display. So we have some of these props that represent the history of the business, where we came from. So when I think about him, I always smile because I had a chance to work with him. You know, we're a 3-generation family business.
So what would I have to fly on to say, hey, I'm in something that has a Horst part in it?
Anything. I mean, given the type of work we do for the type of customers we have in this hotbed of aerospace in the Connecticut River Valley, our parts are just about on every commercial aircraft in the air. Right? So, I mean, we're in the engines, we're in the cabin pressure systems, we're in the propellers, we're in the landing gear of a variety of aircraft, from your smallest general aviation all the way up to your largest twin-aisle jumbo jets.
Business for Horst has been on the upswing. You were saying that Connecticut is sort of experiencing a manufacturing rebirth. Tell me about that.
This rebirth in manufacturing has been underway for a while, and it is now being accelerated by the aftermath of the pandemic. Take what's going on within aerospace first and foremost. You know, it's a global supply chain. It's the industry we do most of our current business in. And there is a need to find capable sources everywhere. But there's a hotbed right here in southern New England, and you know, we represent that. If you look beyond aerospace to some of the markets that we're hoping to diversify into, there's been a renewed interest in advanced manufacturing right here in Connecticut. Companies that are facing the prospects of supply chain shortages, not being able to get the hardware or the equipment they need, lead times lengthening, inflation.
What's your advice for perhaps the governor or lawmakers in terms of making Connecticut a more attractive place for young professionals and businesses?
I don't know if I'm the best person to give advice. I can only speak from my experiences, right? And I've been an advocate of Hartford, an advocate of Connecticut my entire life, right? I grew up here. I came back here after school. I think I was more idealistic. I was involved in a lot of efforts to transform Hartford. You know, I mean, I used to love going to the Whaler games. We were season ticket holders. And it's not gotten better. You know, that's what leaves me a little bit discouraged. But yet, at dinner with my kids, they're teenagers, you know, we talk about what their future might be like. And I'm coming around on this Connecticut thing again, right? You know, I don't know if I personally have the energy to be out there touting it, promoting it, but the best way for me to do that is to run my family's business in the best manner that I can. And that's not direct advice, but it's a model. And maybe these other policymakers can observe that model and see what works.
When we come back, we continue our look at the congressional races, also a peek at the cool, hot, new, trendy places to live in our state. And you'll love what I dug out of the archives for our flashback. You're watching This Week in Connecticut. We'll be right back.